Hello there. It is Faith Talk Live. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
They're in her car close to San Jose, and she knows the way to San Jose, no doubt. Soul care expert, podcaster, author, Bonnie Gray. Bonnie, how are you?
Hey, Rick, Dan, it's so good to see you and be with you this morning.
Now, being from San Jose, how often do you hear that joke about knowing the way to San Jose? Is it?
Hey, do you know the way to San Jose?
Very nice. Yeah. Okay.
All right, hang on. I got to write singer on here now. Let's see. Author, podcaster, singer. Hey, it's good to talk to you. We want to talk about your book. It's called Sweet Like Jasmine, Finding Identity in a Culture of Loneliness. We'll do that in a second. But Christmas is a couple of weeks away. And what are your plans? What do you and your family like to do?
You know what? Our family likes to do a lot of the what you might call classic Christmas traditions, like making Christmas cookies. We're started lighting the Advent candle a week ago, and we love. Even though my boys are teenagers, they're 12 and 15. I still have us, cut snowflakes and we tape them up on our windows. I mean, these really simple traditions that might seem everyday to me. They were things I didn't get to do when I was growing up, in a family that was broken. And so now it's like I'm reliving my childhood, but in a happy, joyful way with my new family. So my kids actually know that. I tell them, hey, Mom didn't grow up the way maybe you're growing up. And so we're going to do some of these fun things that I never got to do, but I love doing them with you.
Awesome. Now, What do 12 and 15-year-old boys want for Christmas this year?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. FIFA, it's a soccer online game. It's called Stadia. So we're not getting the Xbox, but it's called Stadia. And so it's a subscription. And we could just choose one game and not like commit to the whole box. So we got that for them for Christmas. And they're old enough where we actually want to ask them what they want for Christmas. Yeah.
Very cool.
Same here. Bonnie Gray, she is expert, soul care expert, podcaster, author. Her new book is called Sweet Like Jasmine, Finding Identity in a Culture of Loneliness. We'll talk about the podcast in a second, Bonnie. What about this book? What's it all about, and why did you put it out now?
Well, it just came out, and I actually carry a copy of it with wherever I go. Because that's one of the first things people ask you is like, hey, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a podcaster. For Breathe, the Stress Less podcast. But I'm also an author. I just came out with a new book. I always say that. And I said, here, I'll just even stick it, like in front of them and say, read the back of the cover. My mother is a mail order bride from Hong Kong.
Wow.
My dad was a busboy in a noodle shop, and I was born in San Francisco, Chinatown.
Wow.
And so exactly, people are immediately, they're drawn. They're like, what? Oh my goodness. My mother, she married a stranger 10 years older than her. And I said, that's how my story began. It's just such a weird, strange story. I never told anybody, but I decided as a grown-up to go find my father because he left me and my mother when I was 7 years old.
Wow, man.
And so I never saw him. Never came back. I would check. I mean, you talk about Christmas. I would always wonder, hey, will I hear from him at Christmas? My birthday actually was yesterday.
Happy birthday, belatedly.
Thank you. And so I would always check the mailbox every time it was my birthday. Maybe my father might slip a card to me. Maybe this will be the year. And year after year, he never wrote me or came back for me. So once I turned 18, I just felt like, you know what? He didn't care about me. You know what? I don't care anymore. I'm a grown-up now. I'm just going to move on with my life. But it wasn't until I became a mom. I had 2 boys, and I realized I had never thought of it. Like I said, Dan and Rick, once I became a grown-up, I said, forget it. He's gone. But my kids, they're going to grow up one day and ask me, where's grandpa?
Mm-hmm.
And especially around the holidays, they're going to ask, why don't we have a grandpa? And I realized I need to give them an answer. I don't want to tell them what my mom told me. My mom told me nothing.
Yeah.
My mom did not want to even ask me. The day my father left, I still remember it. And those of us who, unfortunately, but are very commonly grew up in, a divorced family, that moment the dad or the mom leaves, it's seared into your memory.
Mm-hmm.
And he had suitcases ready to go. They were fighting and arguing at the screen door. And I was like, what's going on? The last image I had with my father was him driving off in his Nova, peeling off the driveway. I never saw him again. And it kind of like, once I became a mom, when I realized I can't tell them what my mom told me, which was don't ask. He's gone. And I said, I need to give my children the stories and the answer that I never had. So this book, Sweet Like Jasmine, is about my journey to find my father again. Why did he leave? When did he come to America? Because I have no idea. My kids, you know, they're half Chinese American. I married a guy that's from a lumber mill town from Washington State, you know, blonde hair, blue eyes, but they're half Chinese American. They're going to ask me, you know, when did we come to America? I have no idea. So this book is about what happened when I went back. Whoops. I went back and I asked my father, you know, all these questions. And so that's the journey, because we all have things in our past that we want to make peace with, things that kind of like missing from our story. And the holidays really like highlight that, you know, the things that are missing, the things that we grieve. No matter, you know, we come from a happy family, even especially through the pandemic, we, you know, we struggle with these kind of missing pieces of our story.
I'm always interested in how you come up with titles. The title Sweet Like Jasmine, because you go into, you know, a culture of loneliness and you don't think of sweet things and nice smelling things when you think of loneliness like that. Talk about that dichotomy.
Well, you know, like I said, I have such an odd beginning of my story. When I grew up here in the San Francisco Bay Area, when I went to school, you know, I really just hid these things. I didn't talk about my home life or my family life. I just wanted to be happy and be a part like everybody else. So the jasmine tea is the most popular tea in China, in Chinese culture. And so jasmine tea is beautiful because it's a flower and it's closed up like in a bud. But when you release it under the hot warmth of the tea water, it opens up. So, you know, I was lonely because I never shared these things and had no one to share this part of my identity with. But once I started opening up and sharing about my stories, I realized many people we all have in common. We don't have to walk alone. We can come alongside each other and share our stories. And we realize we have each other. We have God. We have our faith. So it's kind of like Sweet Like Jasmine saying, even when our hard times, we're walking through those valleys, when we open up our hearts to God and to each other, life can be sweet like jasmine.
Yeah. Cool.
We're talking with Bonnie Gray, a great book out, Sweet Like Jasmine, Finding Identity in a Culture of Loneliness. She's a podcaster as well. It's what, Breath? I think you said. You say Breath? It's a stressless podcast. I think you said. We'll tell you how you can listen to the podcast. It's interesting. Now you've put this story in book form. Going back and writing it down on paper. Did you go through? Obviously, you went through emotions and challenges. What kind of emotions and challenges did you go through? And how do you get through those things? The loneliness part, the rejection.
Well, you know, it's interesting. A lot of the things that I felt were private between me and God, kind of like my own inner spiritual private life that I would journal, or as I, you know, pray or read the Bible, I realized God was telling me as I wrote it that really that was loneliness, because as I started to write it, you know, I could see myself holding back. You know, when I wrote it, I said, oh gosh, do I really want people to know about this, about me? So I think it was more like I realized I was very fearful, and I didn't know that because prior to that, I always felt all these things that happened in my life. You know, I felt that they were just private information. But you know what? As I started researching, as a writer, you research, those numbers helped me greatly. 1 in every 3 people, study have shown, express they are lonely. 1 in every 3 people have gone through sexual assault by the time they are 18 years old.
Wow.
1 in 5 people are experiencing depression and anxiety right now. So when I look at these numbers, it gives me hope and gives me courage, because it tells me God placed me in a story for a purpose. Scriptures say that we are all born and set in a time and a place that God has prepared for us. And there's a reason why I went through the journey that I have. All of us has a story, and there is a purpose for it, not for us to stay silent, but for those to shine a light. Jesus says, you're the light of the world. We don't put a light under a bowl, but we set it up on a stand so that it gives light to all. each of us has a light, is going to draw different people so that we can comfort them, we can encourage them, not by lecturing, but by saying, I understand you. You are safe with me. Tell me more. Come over for dinner. Let's have a cup of coffee. I'm here to listen. And the world doesn't work that way. The world says, get yourself together, have something to say, or else stay quiet. So we are shining that light, and we all need that. We all need that comfort. And that's why I think stories on Netflix and wherever we're streaming nowadays, they're so popular. Sometimes the stories, you watch them, you're like, I'm not too sure, is this really a good story? But it's because people want to feel that we're not alone. So stories are so important.
So Bonnie, tell us real quick about the podcast that you host and how folks can get involved in that.
Yes, it's called Breathe the Stress Less Podcast. And it's a real quick podcast where you get a soul care tip, which is based on scientific research. A 10-minute walk, for instance, even if you don't feel like it, if you just go out for a walk, studies have shown that it will release serotonin. It'll literally help boost your mood. I mean, that's a simple way to boost your mood, but it's also connected to scripture. Jesus says, walk as children of light. It's interesting, the word walk. So that's an example where you get a quick tip. Breathe the Stress Less Podcast, and you can find that anywhere you like to listen to podcasts.
Awesome.
That's so good. Bonnie Gray, such a delight, Bonnie. We'd love to talk to you again in 2022 after the holidays if you're up for it. The BonnieGray.com is a great place to go to. Check out the book, check out the podcast, sweetlikejasmine.com. Check it all out. We got to take a break. We'll be right back. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
This is Faith Talk Live.